I had an interesting conversation with my son, and this is all about the legacy. And what is my legacy for me? It's to not just ease off your suffering, but dissolve some of it, because it's possible. And he said something to me, Josh, when I made a carrot cake for one of his friends, and he said, Mum, it's so fascinating to him that when I do something like that, there is always a reason behind it. You're always trying to help somebody. You're trying to make them feel not just loved, but supported or being seen. And of course I do. His friend's mum is in a spirit, so I just heard what she said to me and I acted upon it. So this is how my work is very much so driven super spiritually, and I say super spiritually because that's the truth. And I never not disobey it, I obey it in a sense, because I came here with that gift and to ease off human suffering, and not to create the world where nothing difficult ever happens either. And I want you to understand that that's impossible, because losses will happen, rejections will happen in your life, and relationships will end. People will disappoint you at certain points in your time. Things don't always work out the way we imagined. Yeah? We will experience things as children that we didn't have the capacity to understand. But something else can happen after the event. We give it a meaning. Yeah? And sometimes the event ends, but what happens is the meaning survives for decades. And this is what I see in my work. A child experiences rejection and concludes, I'm not wanted. A child receives love primarily through achievements, and then they conclude, I have to perform to be worthy, and they develop a pattern. Yeah? A child grows up around unpredictability, and he will learn, I have to control everything to be safe. A child will become responsible for everybody else's emotions, and they will learn what? My needs come second. Yeah, people pleaser. And this is what is fascinating about human beings. This is the birds in Australia. We're incredibly adaptive. We find ways to survive the circumstances, what we were given, isn't it? And we become the achiever, for example, the perfectionist, yeah, the caretaker, the people pleaser, the strong one, and the one who never asks for anything. And those are adaptations can serve you beautifully in every stage of your life until they don't. Because eventually the thing that once protected you can become very thing restricting you. Let that land in. And that's where so much of my work begins. Yeah? When somebody comes to me and says, I'm not, just listening to what are you telling me. I'm looking for the pattern underneath it. I'm looking what the spirit has got to tell me about you. Because if you could have seen it, you would be doing it. I'm looking for what is repeating. I'm listening to how you're speaking and what words you're using and what compensations happen inside of you. So what do you believe about yourself? Yeah? And I will always ask this. What I'm being shown that this person cannot yet see. Yeah? Because that's the nature of the blind spot. And I always say this, if you could see it clearly, you wouldn't be having a blind spot, is it? You can be incredibly intelligent, self-aware, successful, and you could have read every single book and done courses and gone to the therapy, and there is still something bugging you because it's operating underneath your awareness. Yeah? Not because there is something wrong with you, and I'll always say this, because simply you cannot easily see through the lens you're looking through. Yeah? And that's why I don't think everyone can simply be reduced to change your limiting beliefs. Yeah? Sometimes we first have to uncover what was actual root of that belief. Where did it come from? From what age is super important. What happened? Yeah, and I listen to the Spirit, what they've got to say to me about you in that moment. What meaning did you create? What did you decide about yourself? And what have you been doing ever since to compensate for that decision? Because imagine somebody whose underlying belief is, let's go give you an example, I'm not enough. Yeah, they may have spent their entire life trying to become enough. Yeah, and so what I mean by that is more successful, more knowledgeable, more accomplishments, more useful. Yeah, more attractive, let's go say. Yeah, or more spiritual. More of everything, whatever you want to choose. And from the outside, they might call that ambition. But underneath, it could be a person desperately trying to outrun an old conclusion about themselves. And that's the suffering. The root is the suffering. And this is where you combine the different parts of my work to have a look what is happening for you. Yeah? So what I'm seeing in your patterns, it is the most important. What I'm being shown is spiritually about you. And then we combine your blind spots. Yeah? And so this is where I want to say to you is this. There is a patterns of my work, how we unpack all of the stuff for you. And something that I want you to understand is this. When you understand the pattern, you can finally say this to yourself for the first time. That's why I do what I do, you. That's why you react the way how you react. And that's why you choose those relationships when you understand your childhood pattern. And that's why perhaps you're sabotaging every single opportunity. And could be love, could be work, could be anything. And some of you can't receive. Or some of you are proving yourself continuously. Awareness creates a choice. This for the first time you'll have a choice, because as a child you didn't have a choice. Yeah? Because you can choose differently now, because you can see it. And then we work with what's underneath it. The emotion, the energy, yeah, the meaning, the identity that formed around it, even though it was to help you to survive the whole thing. Yeah, this is where you can then pivot, not because we were magically given something. I don't do abracadabra. Yeah, I don't do that, but because the person is experienced their life is no longer standing in the same spot. You feel like you're breathing then. And this is where I want you to see this, what I believe is in this. The children, and I was pediatric nurse, are not born, I'm not enough. Baby doesn't arrive questioning whatever. They're worthy of love, isn't it? Those conclusions are learned through experiences, which means the work isn't necessarily about manufacturing worthiness. Yeah? It's uncovering everything that made you forget it. And that's why when Josh asked me or made that comment about me and me making that cake, it just simply touched me, because he's observing and seeing. He could clearly see the same intention in something small that exists in work I do every single day. I want people to feel seen. I want them to understand themselves. And I want them to discover the part that they are unable to see right now. And I want to help you to dissolve something of your pain you carried from experiences that may have happened absolutely decades ago. And then I want you to see yourself evolving and growing and expanding, excelling in your life. Not because you finally became worthy enough to have it, extraordinary life or limitless life, yeah? But because you stop building your life around the belief that you were not enough. Do you see the difference? And if there is something I can leave behind through my work, I hope it's less suffering for people and more awarenesses, more freedom, and people remembering their own worth, love, and possibility that were there before life taught them to question it. And I leave you with this because I wanted to share that for you for today.